everybody. Welcome to the Sunburnt podcast. I'm Thomas O'Brien, and this is my co-host, the funniest stand-up comedian in the world, Chip Chantry.
I am the funniest stand-up comedian on this podcast right now, Chip Chantry. Good evening, Thomas O'Brien. How are you, buddy?
Chip, we are still going to Hawaii. It's Instagram official with you and the Blue Note. You guys are a thing.
Yeah, we are an item. We've changed our status from complicated to in a relationship. November 26th, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, we're going to be in Waikiki, baby. My first time, your not first time, but I'm going to be performing at the Blue Note Jazz Club in Waikiki. You guys are coming with us. Sunshine. White sandy beaches.
It really stings. It's blistering.
Clear water.
I screwed this whole thing up.
Ooh, I think I might be sunburned.
Me too. Chip, we're back for episode 2.
The deuce, baby.
I mean, a lot of people are calling it the deuce.
That's the word on the street.
Response on the internet's been overwhelming. We've done zero promotion, but I think people are interested in comedy in islands.
I mean, who wouldn't be? It's literally two of my favorite things.
I mean, they're two of our favorite things. We're putting it together. But like I thought there would be a little drift. I thought people would be Googling it, would be looking up things adjacent and just see us, but it's happening. And one of the first things I saw, because I am in these metrics, I'm looking at what's going on. I'm looking at who's listening in the audio version, who's watching on the YouTube version. The first discernible person that checked out our little podcast from France.
Really?
Just a big old fat French download. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know if we want to use those words, but I welcome them, and I want them. I want them to join us. A big old fat French download who doesn't want a big old fat French download? You just don't
think people, outside of this country exist.
No, and they do, and we're so happy to have you. It's like the people of Portugal, the people of Azerbaijan, the good people of Kiribati. Although if you're in Kiribati, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, you're already in basically a tropical island, so in the middle of the Pacific. So what do we have to offer you that you don't already have? You're in paradise, I would assume.
I mean, I think the answer is love, Chip.
Love,
community, physical touch.
Community, physical touch. Those are actually two of the wooden banners my wife put in our dining room, just for everybody to see. Yeah, it's just humor, physical touch, community. It's just kind of like one of those Target things that you get: live, laugh, love.
Yeah,
but hers are very specific.
Your dining room is very much just like a 1950s camp dining room.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. We actually have a walk-through cafeteria. So we have a staff of about 6 very surly prison ex-convicts who serve us our eggs and our bacon in the morning, and we go through. And it's rustic, but it is expensive. That's what I will say.
It turns out I love an expensive meal.
Yeah.
You ever get done with the meal and just been, I wish this would have cost more?
Yeah, I was like, God, if I could only up the surcharge on this, I think it would have tasted better. Like if I knew I was giving up some of my retirement for this tuna tartare.
Like
is tuna tartare thing? Is that a thing? I think it is.
Yeah.
Steak tartare.
I think anything. It's sushi.
Anything could be tartared, right?
Yeah, I think that's sushi. I don't know a lot about sushi, but I think tartare is just raw. Yeah.
It's basically just raw. So it's like if I just like mash up some Oreos.
Yeah, you can have Oreos tartare.
Whip a little water in there. It's just like, I just had some Nutella tartare. I think most of the things I eat are tartare, now that I think about it, are just raw Ritz crackers, M&Ms.
You're on a raw diet, but what you really mean is you don't cook.
I don't cook anything, no. And so it's just things that I can pick up at the 7-Eleven. Fritos, just things and the pounds are just dropping off because I don't put anything in the microwave or the stove.
That's
cupcakes.
If you did have to cook a meal, it's like, for whatever reason, it's a special day for Kim.
Yeah.
Your wonderful wife. What's your fastball? What are you doing in the kitchen?
I am not much of a cook, but you know one thing I can do, and this is basically a side, but I can cook the hell out of some Brussels sprouts.
Oh yeah,
Brussels sprouts, baby. Yeah,
you doing it in the
lay 'em out.
oven? How are you doing that?
No, I just here's what you do. You just put a bunch of butter on them, and then just shove them in the toaster in each of the slots as hard as you can, and you just and it'll keep trying to pop it up, but you just keep pushing it down for about 20 minutes.
You really got to hold them down.
You really have to hold them down. There will be a smoke alarm going off. There might be a short circuit with that outlet, but it's worth it in the end. They're so good. No, I was never a Brussels sprouts guy. Who was?
Who was?
And then they just became a thing in what, like 2009?
Yeah,
it was just like, oh,
somebody figured out something.
Yeah, MySpace is gone. Brussels sprouts are in, and so I learned how to cook them, and you basically just have them or quarter them, and then a little olive oil, little salt, little pepper, and maybe a little garlic salt, just a pinch of garlic salt. You can't have too much. Love the garlic, but you can't have too much garlic salt. And then I just lay them out on like a cookie tray, whatever, tray, and then you put them in the microwave in the microwave. Come on, who am I talking about? I'm a classy gentleman. In the oven for about 20, 25 minutes, and you get some nice Brussels sprouts.
Well, that's beautiful, Chip. But I mean, we're talking about a true. You're a hardcore. I'm eating it prepackaged, or I'm going to a restaurant. Like that's
Right.
kind of what you're working with most of the time.
Unfortunately, yeah, I wish I could whip things up better. Like I wish I was like, oh, we're gonna have a meatloaf tonight. Look, I just threw together a lasagna. But I don't have those skills. We tried, like we did some of those like food delivery systems, where you get the And by the way, this is not a commercial. This is not a podcast commercial right now, but one of those food deliveries, where you whip it all. Yeah, those are fun. I can cook a little chicken every once in a while. I can cook a little. I'll do some fish, maybe some salmon. I will cook some salmon every once in a while. Nice little like salmon fillet.
Yeah, pop it in.
About it. Yeah. How about you? What's your? I feel like you're a little bit more of a culinary genius than me.
Well, I mean, I used to be. Like I can barbecue. We can get out there. We can work a grill. We actually just had a great barbecue this weekend.
You went away, didn't you? Did you go
I did. I went away, and then we got back from a family vacation, and had a barbecue like 2 hours later. It was just boom, boom, boom.
You just kept the party rolling.
Just kept the party rolling, and like all you want to do is like
that's like going to Chuck E. Cheese, getting home, ordering a pizza. You know what I mean?
I think I've done that.
That's the life.
That's a move that's definitely been done before.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's you always think it's going to be a lot more work than it is. But like once you get on the train, once people are over, once the meat's ready to go on the grill, it's just so fun. So yeah, like a big weekend, big social weekend.
All right, wait, now before we get into your social life, I need to talk about this cooking life. Is this just burgers and dogs? Is this chicken? Is this steaks? What are we talking about, Tommy?
It's all of it. I will say the weakest spot in my game has to be chicken. Like I just haven't spent much time trying to do that on the grill. Like I'm a big baker of chicken. You know, if we're going for that protein, there's a couple of different ways I can do it in the oven that I find very exciting. But
wasn't your nickname in high school Chicken Baker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And me and my boys, the butcher, the chicken baker, the candlestick maker, we terrorized our town.
Yeah, you did. Just in that tub of yours, just going all around,
taking
a bath together and painting the town red.
Isn't it great to just, suds up with your boys?
Suds up with your boys and just talk about your shared but varied careers.
Yeah. Should we be sudsed up right now? Is that an opportunity?
I feel like you and I should be in it. I feel like that was the first podcast. Just a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker in a tub. They had a camera. They had a couple of microphones. Let's talk for an hour and get a Patreon going.
Yeah, and actually that makes a lot of sense because back in the old days, they used to call tubs pods.
Oh, there you go.
Doesn't that make all the sense in the world?
So it was like a tubcast. Yeah.
it was a tub cast, and then they're just like, they didn't like the ring of it. Podcast.
Who do you think was on the outs with that? I feel like the candlestick maker was the one that they would talk about when he was gone.
Well,
like nobody's messing with the butcher, right? Like you don't mess with the butcher.
Well, it's like butcher and baker. That's food industry. Like they've
Right,
got a lot in common.
I feel like they're probably in a shared union of some sort.
Yeah. I mean, they got a lot in common. They feed people. It's like a necessity for life. Candlestick maker. You know what? Like before electricity, I think a candlestick maker pretty valuable. Like you're gonna need those sticks.
You need that guy to dip his wick. Like
Yeah.
he's dipping that wick a lot.
He's dipping it a lot, but I definitely think he's going to be on the outs with the butcher and a baker.
Yeah, I feel he wouldn't have much to offer. They're like, oh man, I was slaving in the hot kitchen today trying to bake these breads and these cakes, and then the butcher's like, I slaughtered 7 hogs today. I'm covered in blood, and then this guy's just in his little shed, just dipping his wick into some wax, and it's and then he just. Do you know what half your job is when you're a candlestick maker? Is you just wait. It's just waiting. That's all it is.
It's drying.
You dip it, and then you just wait.
You bring up a good point, though. I think.
By the way, I don't want to offend any candlestick makers out there. I don't want to offend our listener base right there. If we have candlestick makers and you have a tough job, or if I'm illustrating it in a way that you don't think is appropriate, please let us know. And I do apologize.
If you're a candlestick maker, call in.
Yeah, give us a holler.
I'm going to reverse my decision, though. I think the person that would be on the outs in this group, given that most of what they do is spend time together in a tub, it's got to be the butcher. You said it yourself. He's covered in blood. You're sharing a bath with a bro that's bringing a lot of blood to the party. That's a bloody buddy.
That is a bloody buddy, baby. Yeah, he would need to be hosed down first. Because like if you're okay, and it is just this. It's like I would assume a baker smells pretty good. I mean, I'm sure there's a little sweat equity going in, but he's got some powdered sugar. He's got some marmalade on him. Like that's sweet. And then a candlestick maker, at the very least, he smells like wax. That's not terrible, but like maybe he's getting into the scented game. I mean, this is probably the 1800s, maybe 1700s. I don't know when this happened.
Oh, he could be the town expert.
Like he's the first guy. He's like, I got a hazelnut flavor right now. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't know you could do that with candles. It's like, oh, here's meadow mist.
Yeah.
Like, ooh. So he probably smells great. And then you have a butcher that just smells like pork loin. That you're bathing with. You're bathing with this man.
You're bathing with this man. And also like, I don't know one person that's ever gotten sick from candles. You know what I mean?
Nope.
But like back in the old days, like you get a little food spoilage. And I think if you're the cause of that, you're a pariah. You're not coming back from food poisoning sometimes back then. It's like now you've accidentally murdered like the mayor by giving him a spoiled brisket.
Right. And then also people shared tubs back then. I mean, water wasn't free. You couldn't just pull the tap. Like you had to go down to the river, fill it up, warm it up. Like we've all seen cauldrons. We know how Hansel and Gretel ended. It's so these people are sharing that, and this filthy butcher with his sheep shanks, and it's just bloody mitts, and he's a big man. There's no skinny butchers out there.
This is a beefy individual.
Yeah, the only skinny butcher I've ever seen is Mike Myers' love interest on So I Married an Axe Murderer, and that's not real. Remember her? She was a very sweet butcher gal. And that's the movies though. That's Hollywood. That's not real. That's not the real Thomas, that's not the reality of 3 grown men bathing together. 3 men of different occupations just in a small tub bathing together.
Yeah.
That's real life. That's the America that we want to talk about on this podcast. Is just 3 men taking a bath together, talking about their shared careers.
I think the reality is like if that water ever got hot, it wasn't hot for long. Like they're not getting in this tub dangling over a fire. Like that's just not how this is working. It's not the cauldron we talked about earlier.
No.
That works if you're children ducks. You know, you can
Yes.
fit in
Yeah.
one of those. But this is 3 men in a tub. I'm willing to bet the water's pretty cold almost immediately. And I think that makes it more intimate. It's like they were the original, and this brings it back. It was obviously a podcast. They're cold plunging together. It's very Rogan.
Yes, it is.
And that's just been a tradition that's gone on through the decades.
Thank you, Thomas. Just a man chopping his meat, taking a cold plunge with 2 other gentlemen.
Yeah.
That's what they don't show you on those podcasts, the Rogans of the world. It's just like him alone. But they're all jumping in there together, just taking a polar plunge.
A coldie with your boys.
After a long day at the bakery.
Yeah.
I've been baking
good.
all day. It's hot. It's sweaty in here. It's 350 degrees. I'm cooking tarts. And I need to get in an ice bath with 2 other men from my village. Who's coming? But all APB out there. We got a candlestick maker walking down, and then just a butcher just lumbers in. All right, let's get off those bloody clothes. Jump in this chilly old tub with me.
This
was a nursery rhyme that we said to children.
Oh, all nursery rhymes are insane. All
They're
nursery
horrific.
rhymes are insane. They're horrific. Like I remember my grandma, like she spoke French, was a big like French head in high school, like loved Paris, a Francophile, if you will.
Right, sure. Yeah.
And I remember her giving
Not a
us,
James Francophile though.
No.
She's not a fan.
She stands with all women.
Okay, good.
But she
Okay, just to fill in, and I apologize, but just to paint inside the lines here, are you of French descent? Or Canadian
Zero.
of any? No.
0. She was just like a Beverly Hills lady, and I remember seeing in like her yearbook or something that she was involved in a French club.
Sure.
Like she was just into it, and it carried on throughout her life. She was like an artist. She was a very cool lady. And the first thing probably not the first thing she gave me, but the first thing I remember, because it ended up being traumatic, was this French children's book. It was like a pictured book.
Okay.
And I believe it was about a little girl or boy who got their fingers cut off with scissors for being bad. Just cut clean off for disobeying the rules. It's like, and so many of them are brutal, like, and also there's like some dark comedy to it. Like I was thinking about what's that song where it's the kids in a tree or something? Oh, Rockabye Baby and the Treetops.
Oh, Rockabye. Yeah.
Yeah. That is about a baby sleeping in a crib and it falling.
Yeah.
It's
from great heights.
And you sing it gently to a child as they're going to sleep. It's just
Yeah.
like, it's dark comedy. It's like
Yeah.
you're comforting this person, but they don't know the words you're saying. So as long as you say it nice, they don't know you're singing a song about basically them dying.
3 were arrested last night after a triple homicide. There were bullet casings all along the street. And you could just sing the 11 o'clock news. You have a daughter who is, I mean, I'm sure she's picking up some words now, but I feel like you have a small window of time where you could just sing the 11 o'clock news to her.
Yeah, I mean, the only problem is I'd have to watch it. It's very depressing.
And you're scary about that. Yeah, no, that would be true.
It's
I feel like nursery rhymes, to a certain extent, were written for the purpose of scaring children. I mean, that was the purpose, was because it was like, if look, you little French brat, if you don't follow the rules, we're going to cut your fingers off. So it's like, you're going to follow the rules. It's like, don't wander off into the woods. A wolf who is big and bad will get you, or a single older woman, you know what I mean? Like, who lives alone will get you. But I will say this. I remember reading nursery rhymes to my niece a couple years ago, and like from an adult perspective, it's even scarier. Okay, like for different reasons. Like the 3 bears.
Yep.
Okay, now bears might be scary, right? They're big, they're vicious. But like if you have like a middle-aged or like a middle-class kind of bear family, you know, dad's got a job in insurance, mom's a homemaker, kids in like second grade. They go out for the day, right? They come home. Could you imagine coming home with your wife and child, Thomas, just from a nice day out, maybe going on vacation, a little get away, maybe even just going to the store, and then you come home and there's a small blonde child sleeping in one of your beds?
I do not like it.
No. I am, or she's eating porridge and just looking you in the eyes and being like, just right.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to ask where you were going to light a match. You're going to toss it at that girl. You're going to close the door and you're never going to come back in that house again.
Dude, if there was a spider inside, I'd toss a match and never go back again.
Yes,
it's an incredible invasion of privacy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the most frightening part is just the entitlement.
That's what it is. It's just, let's just say white privilege. Yep. And this little girl just walking into a bear's house. They scrimmed and scrumped and scraped and scraved. I know there is a saying that I couldn't. Scrimped and saved. They scrimshawled. He was a scrimshander. He would draw intricate pictures into whales' teeth. Scrim. So he would say, this bear family is just making it. You know, they're paying their bills. They have a mortgage. And then this girl just comes in and just starts jumping all over furniture, eating their food with no repercussions whatsoever.
Well, I mean, a lot of people don't know this. Goldilocks is a nickname.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Her real name, Karen.
I could have, that makes sense.
Yeah.
She's like, this porridge is not hot enough. I need to speak to somebody. What is your name? What is your name, Bear?
You know what's worse than sending it back? Just going and grabbing the next person's bowl over. That's true entitlement.
That's a lazy Susan, just a lazy Karen right there, just sliding it over, being like, I'll try yours next instead of sending it back. Do you ever send anything back? Are you a sender backer at all? Like,
I would rather kill myself.
Yeah.
I'd rather send myself back to the afterlife than send something back. One of the wildest things I've ever seen in my whole life was I don't know the context, but a woman reaching into a hamburger, pulling out the patty and waving it in the waiter's face at a very nice restaurant. Like the nicest restaurant you can imagine ordering a burger at.
Okay, and by the way, you're at a fancy restaurant and you're ordering a hamburger. Okay, first of all,
it's happening now.
There's nothing wrong with hamburgers. I'm saying that, but you also then don't have the right to complain about anything. So anyway, wait. So she is brandishing a beef patty at this waiter,
shaking it in his face, right up in his face, and she's saying, what was the phrase? It was like, I wouldn't let my worst enemy eat something like this. And this poor guy, I remember, it was like, I don't remember stuff like this, but it was so outrageous. And then the guy starts going, he's like, well, we use all organic beef, so sometimes it cooks a little faster than we expect. And that's not what she wanted to hear. She wanted to hear, you're the queen of the world. Mm-hmm. We're going to get one to your liking immediately. Instead, he came with an excuse, and this got this lady super juiced. She was about to bounce off the ceiling. It was one of the wildest things I've ever seen. And I love overhearing at restaurants. If I'm when we're at a restaurant, I'm not listening to you, Chip.
No,
I am listening to everybody around us. And there used to be those commercials for do you have trouble with background noise? Mm-hmm. Can you not focus on conversations because blah, blah, blah? I think there was a hearing aid or something to it. And I was like, I only want to hear background noise. I get really in the weeds. I want to identify what you're talking about because boy, oh boy, when you think nobody's listening, is that when you let the real tea spill, Chip?
Okay. I think we just hit on what this podcast is about. We are going to Hawaii this Thanksgiving. We are reaching for some amazing things that we're going to do. We want to work hard, and then we want to go and celebrate with us. But I think you and I we've known each other for a decade now, Thomas.
Yep.
That might be the thing that we have most in common, that maybe I've never felt closer to you, of sitting quietly with your date, with our wife, your wife, my wife, and just not talking, and maybe on the outside, because sometimes I worry about this. I think about, like, if other people are looking at my wife and I, do they think that we don't have anything in common? Do they think that we're having a fight? Am I not interesting enough for my wife, to have this conversation? But I would say 60% to 70% of the time, we are sitting quietly at a restaurant, listening to the people around us. And then on our walk home from the restaurant,
yes,
we're upperly mobile in Philadelphia. It's a walkable city. We walk home. We just debrief on everything we heard. And that's our time. Our time is not to talk at the restaurant. Who has time for that? We're taking it in. We're listening. We did this. Now, this seems like a very privileged woman, the one brandishing the hamburger meat.
Yes.
At a fancy restaurant. Very similar, but very different experience. Literally just 2 nights ago, this Monday night, my wife and I were at I'm not going to name it, but we were at a diner in South Philadelphia. If you're in Philly, that narrows it down to 3 right now. So, because unfortunately there are only 3 diners left in South Philadelphia, as far as I know.
Wow.
We were at one, and there was such shenanigans going on at the table, at the 2 booths down from us. It went from, do you know there's that moment, and I am somebody, and I feel bad because I get grumpy sometimes. Like, I got grumpy before I got old. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was a grumpy old man when I was 31. Like, I was that guy who would get annoyed with stuff. And I was like, I have to remind myself, I'm not going to get annoyed. I'm not going to cause a scene. I'm not going to be grumpy about stuff. But there's moments where you're just like, somebody's acting just inappropriate. I'm trying to enjoy a meal. Even at a diner. I love a diner meal. Diner is my favorite type of restaurant in the world. I'm trying to have a good, and these people are just carrying on 2 down. But then there's that magic moment. And I want everybody at home to think about this magic moment right now, where it goes from annoying to just beautiful and hysterical. And it's just there's something that pushes that needle of like, oh, I am not against these people. I am totally on board with these people's lives. I would watch this reality show of just their family. And it was just, there was somebody, it was 2 women, and I think it was a mother and a daughter. The daughter was probably in her 30s. The mother was like in her 60s. And they are loudly talking to someone else on their phone, but like on FaceTime. So you can then hear
Jeff,
that,
I
like,
hate these people.
Okay, here's the thing about South Philly. If you are in a South Philly diner and you are talking loudly to somebody on FaceTime, there's a 70% chance that person is currently in the hospital. As was this woman, was in the hospital, and I felt terrible because the younger woman, she was just like, "Okay, Mom, I'll see you, Mom. All right, Mom." And then to the woman in the hospital. So I guess it was her mother, maybe an aunt, I guess, was at the hospital, at the diner with her. But they had a 15-minute loud conversation.
Oh boy.
And it was, okay. And I don't want to be like, we couldn't see them. Like, we didn't have visuals.
Yeah.
So then you have to outlast them, which luckily we did, for them to walk past after the meal so we can get a 20 on these guys. Like, all right, this is who they are. Because it's like, again, I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but like, I don't know what their abilities were as human beings. Do you know what I mean? Like, just like these could be, and I was just like, this is amazing. But they had the greatest conversation. And it was just, and then at the end, we knew they were wrapping up because the older woman then started on speakerphone again, calling either taxi drivers or Uber drivers.
Perfect.
To try to pick them up. Not going on the app. We're not going to go on the app. We're literally going to call them. And she's like, "Hi, this is Gina. You drove me here 20 minutes ago. Can you pick me up
and
drive me home?" And she had to go through like 3 of them that said no. And then finally she got somebody. But like, these are the moments, like, okay, my wife is a wonderful woman. I don't care what her day was like. She doesn't care what I have gone through these past 24 hours. We don't need to talk during this meal.
Yeah.
Our sole concern is at table 6 over here. That's all we want to talk about.
That's why. I mean, that's why we tip.
Yes.
We're tipping for the free conversations. The rest of the time.
By the way, I went to the restroom right before we were ready to leave, and the waiter, this a little bit older gentleman, winked at my wife. That this is what she relayed to me on the walk home. Winked at her because there was yet another table of elderly people who were just giving him the biggest runaround of like asking him 1,000 things while he's trying to take their order, and they're just ancient and just like, well, can I exchange the peas for this? Do you have this? Can I get those eggs poached? Like all this stuff. And he's like, hey, let me just take your drink orders and I'll be back. But he's like trying to take care of them. And finally, they're just giving the runaround, and he like turns to my wife and just like winks at her, like knowingly, like this is my life. And that's all you want in a restaurant, Thomas. That's all you want.
That's all.
And that waiter, after his shift was done, you know exactly what he did. He went down to the communal tub, stripped down, and took an ice cold bath.
Yeah.
With a pharmacist and a construction worker.
It's the modern day. The story continues. All those stories stick with us for a reason. Yep. And if you love eavesdropping, which by the way, eavesdropping.
Yeah, dropping off that eave.
What does that mean?
So an eave is like, I'm gonna get this wrong. But like architecture, it's like, is the eave like the overhang of the roof? I think like, your eaves and overhangs, like the eave is like somewhere roof related. And I think if I'm correct, correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, but people would whoever would like hang off of the roof and kind of like listen into the window, which you're more of a peeping Tom at that point, but you're listening. And so you're eavesdropping. I think that's what it is. They're kind of like, dangling off the roof or hanging down, listening into the conversation.
That's
those
an
eaves, baby.
That's an aggressive visual. That's one of those words. Like I probably was in my 30s before I realized I was saying it and writing it wrong. Like not that it came up a lot, but I thought it was eavesdropping.
Yeah,
EAS, and it doesn't mean anything. But a lot of words don't mean anything. What's a summer?
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's just a bunch of letters put together, and it means something.
They're just words.
But if you love eavesdropping, your neighborhood has to be just the gift that keeps on giving, because if the whole world's baseline audio is at a 1 for people talking, I think in your neighborhood, people talk at a 8.5 on average. Yeah. Like that's just the general, like they're really diaphragming it up in South Philadelphia.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, our cores are always working. You wouldn't know it, but our cores are always working. It's just that diaphragm. It is. And by the way, I am very aware right now that I'm doing a podcast in my basement that either one of my neighbors could be listening to right now. So again, I'm not excluding myself from the neighborhood. I'm part of the problem here. But yeah, South Philly is just such a beautiful thing where you can hear, like if the cable goes out for some reason or the internet's down, all you have to do is sit in the dark and just listen to either one of your adjacent neighbors, because it's like, we're row houses, so it's like literally we share walls, and you can just hear anything. We have a bus stop right across the street. There's a sweet gentleman who sings songs about Jesus as he's waiting for the bus a lot. There's a lady who she gets angry and loudly cries when the bus doesn't show up on time. And that's a thing. There are some. I think there's some issues.
I think that was a scene from Baby Reindeer you're talking about.
It's similar, but not British. Not British enough.
Okay.
She actually fell down one Sunday morning and couldn't get up. Like literally, like the commercial told us.
Oh, no.
She had fallen, couldn't get up, and it's 6:30 in the morning on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And by the way, that bus ain't coming for another hour. It's Sunday morning at 6 o'clock. These buses aren't. It's not every 15 minutes. You know what I mean? This is, so my wife and I, we could see her out our window, and like, oh my God, she fell. So we got dressed real quick. We ran out, picked her up, and put her on the bus. She also loves my dog Franklin. So whenever we see her, we have to bring Franklin over to her so she can pet her. But and that's just the outliers. But just in general in South Philadelphia, you can. I remember my mom was visiting. It was like one of her first times visiting when we lived in South Philly, and we were having lunch at this nice little outdoor cafe in the Italian market. Just beautiful. Just my mom and I having this nice little lunch. Busy day, but just normal, whatever. And I could tell my mom got quiet and she got nervous, right? Okay. We're having a conversation.
Yeah.
And she's looking across the street. And I'm like, she's like, I was like, is everything okay? And she's like, oh. And then she starts kind of laughing. She's like, oh, yeah. She's like, I thought those two ladies were having a fight. But they were just talking to each other. But they were like across the street from each other. So it's like, hey, Marie, how you doing? Did you get that thing done? Oh, yeah, I'm getting my hip replaced, blah, blah, blah. Hey, how's that? I like your decorations. You getting ready for the holiday, blah, blah, blah. And screaming at each other. So, but you have to clock it. Like in my neighborhood, like you hear people screaming. Half the time, they're just having a nice, pleasant conversation. But you have to listen for tone, and it does take a little while. But yeah, it is. There are no secrets in South Philly. I mean, there are a lot of secrets in South Philly, but they are all screamed across the street.
Yeah, that's I think that's what catches your ear all the time too. It's like what gets you to dial into a certain conversation is that like, oh, is this an argument? Like,
oh, absolutely. Well,
that's
like
why
we flip through Instagram is looking for conflict. That's all we're doing is we're looking for conflict. If it was just two people having a nice conversation, why would you be eavesdropping on them? You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe we need to up the conflict on this podcast.
See, we're connecting here. So there has to be some sort of political debate or some maybe get into religion or just arguing about who the most underrated rock group of all time is. You know what I mean? Like maybe it is. Maybe we do need that. Or do we need to bring in a third person into our tub?
Yeah, that we just beat the absolute crap out of.
Just constantly, just lay into all the time. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's what you guys want. Is just conflict.
No, I think we're sticking with this. We're
All
doing
right.
a pretty positive thing.
But by the way, and I don't want to get into this, and this is what this podcast is about. And I'm not getting into any topical stuff. I don't want to get anything, but like, I think some people right now today, you know, it's 2025, and some people are feeling kind of down. Some people are feeling great, I'm sure. But it's like I feel like the world is in such chaos right now. By the way, that's another one of those words that luckily this stoner kid in my English class had to read aloud, and he said chaos. And he's like, what's this chaos stuff? And everybody laughed at him. And the teacher's like, that's chaos, not chaos. It's chaos. And if I was reading that, I would have said chaos. So I'm like glad. I am so glad that he took the brunt of that, not me. But something has really happened to me over the last, like, in recently, where like there's such chaos going on that like to me it's kind of freeing. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm just I'm like, okay, well, because if everybody else was doing great, then I feel like I have to be doing great. Like there's a reason for me. Like, where's my next paycheck coming from? Why am I not achieving greatness? Why don't I have this career? Why don't I do this thing? You know. But if everything's just in fire, I'm just kind of whistling past the graveyard, having a good time, and like, oh, I'm almost feeling better than I have, and this is kind of what we want to do is just sort of escape all of that and just like whatever, and just have fun, go to Hawaii, and just enjoy ourselves. And like honestly, like I've just been just focused more on the chip man. That's what I call myself a lot. That's the first time I've ever done that before, and it really hurt my soul to say that. But
it had a Duffman vibe to it.
It did. Yeah.
Chipman.
So yeah. So I'm just having a good time. I'm just having fun. I don't want conflict. I just want to have fun with my buddies. I just want to have fun with my friends in a bathtub.
In a tub. Yep.
Yeah.
In a tub. No, I think obviously we're on the same page there. It's I do think some people are doing great. I think some people are bummed out, but across the board, I think a lot of people are just exhausted.
Yeah.
At least that's how I can get if I think about anything going on, you know, much wider than outside of my house. It's just like, you know, no matter where we are in history. And that's one of the things about going to the islands, going back to that is like, we've talked about this before. You're like, why should we do it? Why is it special? What's going on? And I think one of the big things why it's exciting to me and like why I love just traveling so much is you don't bring your problems with you.
No.
Like, and there is really, I think there's a big distinction between when you change your physical location, you can really feel a different way. You know,
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
think that goes for people with depression. I think that goes for people who are going through a hard time, and I think that also goes for like, I mean, we just had these fires here in Los Angeles. That was absolutely awful, and we pretty quickly, we didn't know what was going on. We had the ability to get out of town for a little bit, so we did. We went down to San Diego, and it was just like, it was a hellscape here in Los Angeles. We got to San Diego where, it's just the same chaos. People were empathetic to what was going on, but it wasn't happening to them.
Right.
And that's just a much different vibe. So, I mean, when you get out of a tough situation, when you're feeling, whatever you're trying to escape, that's something vacations do. And specifically, like, when it's just so nice and beautiful and everything around, and you're going just to kind of relax and have an experience with who you're going with, or go do something fun like see a show, or, see where a TV show that you loved was shot. Like, there's all these different things you can do, and it really is a version of escape therapy. You're just in a different place. It looks different. It feels different. You don't have the day-to-day responsibilities that might have been grinding you back home. It's truly a remarkable thing to take in, especially if you're a person like us that, suffers from extreme anxiety.
Oh, I've never heard that word. That's one of those words I don't think I'd be able to pronounce if I saw it. Did you say anxiety?
Anxiety. It's with an
Okay,
X.
yeah. I'll have to look into that. I'm not really familiar, so. No, I am 100% familiar with that, and that is the thing where, like, speaking of which, we are basically exactly 5 years past the beginning of the pandemic.
That
right?
blows my mind.
And I was always teetering on a decent, let's just say, a tub full of anxiety.
Yeah.
Me. And then 2020 happened, and just like, it just went off the rails. But anxiety, as I learned, as I read, obviously it's all about the future. We're living in the future, because right now we're doing great, right? Yeah. You and I, we're sitting here in a tub having a good time. But like, what do I have to do later today? Am I going to miss that call? What's going to happen in this thing in my stomach doesn't feel good. What if it's something terrible? Or all of these things that are down the road that aren't now.
Yeah.
And the best part about a vacation is also that looking forward to the future, is the getting ready. We have 8 months, and like those 8 months, it's that week before vacation vibe that I just love, where you're just like, I can kind of phone in it at work, or even if I have to do extra work at the office, I'm going to get it done happily, because next week I'm not going to be here. And I'm using these next 8 months as that week before vacation vibe of like, I'm just getting excited. I'm going to do a lot of hard work, but I'm going to have fun. But I have this thing to look forward to. I don't want to call it a finish line. That sounds a little euthanasia-y, but like, there is this like cool thing to look ahead to of like, I'm gonna do some fun thing. I'm not gonna discount the things that I'm gonna do in the meantime, but like, I'm super pumped, and that's changing my anxiety about the future into something that's a lot more positive, hopefully.
Well, that's it. I mean, and that's why, we talk about choosing how you want your life to be, and there's a lot of reasons to do that. It's how you get the life you want, but also the future can be just really anxiety inducing. And I think just by putting your stamp on it, by saying like, no, this is how I'm going to spend this period of time in the future, that puts a little bit of like excitement where anxiety used to be, So it's like, the common knowledge is like, stay present, stay right now. Most of your problems aren't happening this minute. It's like either things you regret about the past or things you're nervous about the future. But when you take the future and wring its neck and say, it's going to be great, I'm going to do these fun things, I'm planning for it, it's going to be awesome, then you're taking control and you can kind of step out of that. The first time I ever went to Hawaii, and this was like, part of the reason we're doing this is I had just, to use your phrase, worked so hard. Mm-hmm. I was making 2 TV shows at the same time, and like, I don't know how I even did it. They were like in different locations with totally different crews for different production companies, and I had just worked out my schedule, so I was doing one show 4 days a week and one show 3 days a week, and they just happened to interlock. So I had been working like full production hours for, I think it was 31 days straight. Mm-hmm. 31 days straight.
And this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is coming off of our first show together. Is that right?
It was after. It was
It was
after
a little bit after that. Okay.
Yeah, it was a little bit after it because, yeah, I think this was kind of the next round.
Okay.
There was a show between us, and that was like a year-long stint, and then this just popped up. It was like, can you do this thing? And then I started doing that thing, and then I got somebody else, can you do this thing? And I figured out a way to make them work together. But and all the time, like trying to get in shape. Like you got craft services, and you're eating it 3 meals a day, 7 days
Yeah, because that's
a
all
week.
you have time for. You're just sitting. You're sitting constantly.
You're sitting
at
constantly.
an editing bay or whatever. Yeah.
And then they come in with, the catering always comes in with a snack or two.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you're trying to be a good boy, and then somebody shows up at 4:30. You're starving. You're exhausted.
You're exhausted. Yep.
And they're like, "Would you like a grilled cheese and some chicken noodle soup as a snack?" And I was just like, "Nobody's offered me a snack since my mother, and I was 8 years old. Yes, I want that." We just got a Chipotle quesadilla squares. Is that something to be interested in? And you're like, absolutely. But I'd been a good boy. Like I turned it down 31 straight days.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Hawaii. It was the first vacation I'd ever taken. And I will be very honest, it took me 3 days to sink in and get there, to relax.
Talk to me about that for a second. I remember
Yeah.
you mentioned that before, but it's like
Yeah.
just to like mentally.
I had no idea what I was in for. Like I got there and immediately I was like, this is the best. I'm loving it. It was my girlfriend, and that was still like fairly new at the time. And we were just like in this amazing place, staying at this nice hotel. I'd just never done anything like it, but I didn't realize that there was more I could get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just fast forward 3 days of just kind of, we didn't even really leave our area. We were just like, we're at the hotel hanging out at the beach in front of it. And I don't know. I just got to this place I've never been before. Or maybe it was like I gave myself so much anxiety by working so hard and pushing it so hard. But I just decompressed after a couple of days. And I'd never felt like that in my life, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that is why it has such an impact on me and why I look at it so favorably. Is like, that's the first place I ever got to that place in. And yeah, it's like now I can get there much quicker. Like I know what it is. I know that it's to be achieved. And actually it's a little harder with the baby now. Like well,
sure. But
we went last year. It's new. There's new challenges every time. But, the fact of the matter is like that's a thing that exists, like this true deep sense of like my problems aren't here. I've done a really good job working really hard. I don't have to feel guilty about this. I can enjoy it with people I love. I don't know. That's I think, if I'm being very serious and honest, which I have been, this is not funny at all. That's why I love places like that. I love tropical locations. I love those beaches, and I love doing it with people I love. And it's just, it fires me up so much, dude, that we are doing this. We're doing comedy, and we're doing it together too. Like we've never been to an island together before.
We have not,
much less our families, and we're just going to go out there.
Burbank, California is not technically an island, correct?
It's not technically, but to some people, once they get there, they never get off. You know what I mean?
Right.
They just melt right into that Burbank asphalt.
Yeah, they do. But that's like just so amazing too. Like I'm looking forward to because I think I've been on 3 tropical excursions in my life.
Yeah.
The one was Cancun when I was a senior in college, like, senior week or spring break. And that was just like, I just remember it was fun, but it was also just like booze fueled stressful. Cause it was like, I was there with my fraternity brothers and then my girlfriend and her sorority sisters. And then there was just like, there was always like drama or, somebody's yelling at somebody because we're, 20-year-old idiots. And it was just like, I never decompressed once that entire time.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
And then one time I went to the Bahamas to the Atlantis Resort, one of the most ritziest, beautiful resorts of the time. But it was for a work trip. I was working for this company that did corporate training, and we did. I don't get into the whole story. Sometimes it was wild. Like we were doing these ridiculous corporate training games, like with like hula hoops and life-size checkerboards and like all this like goofy stuff with like some of the top CEOs of the world. They had their own personal like security and bodyguards with them because they were so rich. Like that.
Wow.
And then I'm in charge of like doing these goofy games with them. They would like it was wild. I played blackjack with Mike Myers that night at the casino. He was just sitting there. I was like, this is just the wildest thing. But again, it's a work trip, so I wasn't enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And then finally, we went for like a long weekend down to Punta Cana with my now wife and her brother. Just the three of us went down just for like a 4-day thing. And it was just a quick trip, but like that was the first time where I was like, this is the greatest feeling in the world. And I only had it for probably about 48 hours of that in there. So I am just super psyched to get this to get that vibe.
Yeah, that'll stick with you. And was the third one just the Keys, baby?
Oh, so the third one was Punta Cana, and then I was in the Keys. I guess the Keys, the Florida Keys, are considered tropical. That was beautiful. That last summer with my brother, he's in a band, and we went down there, and man, the Florida Keys, that might be I mean, we're going to Hawaii. Maybe there's another trip on the books.
We got to go, and I've talked to you before, but like the show Bloodline takes place in the Keys. Mm-hmm. It was like one of the first Netflix. I mean, obviously terrible things happen in that show. There's deaths and it's a lot of anxiety, but it looked unlike any other place I've ever been. It had its own distinct mark on like the tropical experience, and I was just like, that's something I'd really like to do someday.
I've been to Florida a number of times, and take it or leave it, whatever. But so I didn't know what to expect when we went down to the Keys.
Yeah.
And then I got down to Key West, and I was like, oh, this isn't Florida. This is a
little different. Yeah.
This is a whole different society down here. It's beautiful. There's just like wild chickens and roosters and iguanas just walking around everywhere. Just
love
like
a
you'll
wild
just
iguana.
you'll just be in a restaurant that's like sort of indoor outdoor, and there's just a rooster under your table. Like it's just the weirdest, and just beautiful buildings, great people, and God, yeah, it was gorgeous. Humid though, baby, a lot of humidity.
Oh,
but
yeah,
it was great.
That's the Florida curse right
I'll
there.
sweat it out. And then hop in the tub, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's what tubs are for.
Yeah. That's what tubs are for. If we are naming our episodes. There's episode 2. That's what tubs are for. A Dionne Warwick classic. Yeah.
Maybe we'll go with like 3 men in a tub.
3 men in a tub. I think that's it.
I think is that. I mean, who's gonna watch that?
Yeah, that's true.
Listen to that.
I mean, a lot of people. There's a lot of people that would watch that. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Well, we'll keep thinking about it.
We will.
By the time this comes out, it'll have a tremendous tub-related name.
They're actually not to. I know this isn't a music podcast, but I'm such a music nerd. I love this.
Yeah.
This is not a joke at all, and I'm not. One of my new favorite bands is a band called The Tubs. Honest to God, I believe they're from Wales, and they just put out a new album, and they are great. It's rock and roll. If you guys like 80s, like Husker Du kind of, that, but maybe like a little bit of like a Irish, British Isles sort of folk feel, but really more just rock. Just a great band called The Tubs. Check them out, everybody.
I'm writing it down. The Tubs.
Yeah, The Tubs.
Well, I think we're about time here, Chip.
I know, dude. This went. Hey, time flies when you're taking a bath with a buddy. That's
it. It does when you're sudsing it up.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. You got anything coming up? Oh, wait. Let's talk about your musical, man. Let's talk about your musical. You just had a rehearsal, correct?
And let's say that again. You said let's talk about your musical, man.
Yeah.
It's my musical, man.
Yes.
Yeah. So my musical.
But you still have the guy that lives in your basement that sings, right?
Yeah, he's a one-man band. He just comes out when we give him bread and water, and he comes out and he plays a little sings a little song from the sea for us, and it's beautiful. That's my musical man. No, this is so myself and my good friend Mark, who owns the comedy club, Helium Comedy Club. He had this idea. He's in a band on the side, kind of for fun. They cover band 80s and 90s.
Entertainer extraordinaire.
Entertainer extraordinary. He plays keyboards and stuff like that. And he wanted the band to play at the comedy club. So to book him, but he's like, I want to do something rather than just a concert.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And we kind of developed this. We created this little show where it's like kind of if you remember like Tony and Tina's Wedding, or like one of those
Yeah.
immersive kind of theater experiences where like, oh, the person I was sitting next to is an actor, like
Uh-huh.
that. But a scaled back version, because we didn't have a lot of time or budget. But we have a show called Rock Bottom. It's going to be on March 29th at Helium in Philadelphia. It's a matinee show, afternoon show. Boom, perfect time.
Yep.
And so you're going to get just a fun cover band, but then some weird stuff's going to pop up throughout the course of the show. There's going to be these little things that happen throughout. It's Rock Bottom, the sing-along where everything goes wrong. And you just want to sing along to these songs, but there are some interruptions every once in a while that I think are pretty hilarious. I'm pretty proud of that we wrote, and I'm really sorry. I've never, I'm a regular Andrew Lloyd Webber now. Is basically what I'm saying, and it was a lot of fun. I didn't think we'd be able to pull it off, but we just had our penultimate rehearsal last night, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. At the very least, you're going to hear a really good cover band playing some really fun songs. And then we have some actors, comedians that are going to try to throw a monkey wrench into the works.
And there was a pretty extensive casting couch to get into your production, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, you really had to go through the gauntlet of, let's make sure we're getting the right people for this. Yeah, to be able to play a staff member who actually sings a little bit. That's we've all seen those videos. Yeah.
No, it's very stimulating. If you haven't seen any, Chip will send you a link.
Yes, I will.
But that sounds so intriguing, buddy. That sounds so good. I'm very excited. I'm jealous.
And
that I won't
by the
be
way,
able
it's one
to
of
be
those. It's one of those things too that, like, again, not to get all self-helpy, but like we're doing these things like where I could have. He came to me and was like, "Would you want to try this thing with me?" And again, I'm the type of person. My gut instinct is like, no, like I can't do this. I can't write this little play or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, no, it sounds like fun. I can do this. And then it kind of sucked for a little bit of just like not knowing what it was and uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And we all know what that, as people who made television,
It's
comedy,
the blank page.
The blank page, that discomfort of getting it. But then all of a sudden that discomfort just, you get a flow and you're like, oh, here's where the pieces come together. And I feel like it just gave me so much confidence to write more scripts and to just like to produce and direct something. And it's been, it's just a little thing, but it's a thing, and I'm excited about it. Yeah, so it's like, again, taking the time this year to like really try and accomplish some fun things.
And no, it's doing things that you want to do. Like
Yes.
the world would never say you have to write this musical. You chose to do it and you put in the effort. Now you have this thing you're proud of, you're excited about, and you're doing it with a buddy.
Yeah.
There's just nothing better than making stuff with your buddies that make stuff.
Exactly.
Planning, it just, it can, I don't know. I'm so excited, and it really does embody a lot of the things we've been talking about and the reason why we're doing this. So that's exciting. Everybody, if you're in the Philadelphia area or willing to travel, is it this Thursday?
So, no. So the show is Saturday, March 29th.
Okay,
It's
so
a
a
4
Saturday.
p.m. show, matinee.
Yeah.
Saturday.
Get out there, go see it, support this thing. And Chip, I got to get going, but this was an absolute blast. Thanks so much for doing this. Thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you soon. I screwed this whole thing up.